Thank you. This is the July 8th Orangetown Planning Board meeting. A couple things before we start. PB 20-21, 1119 Tweed Boulevard site plan will be postponed to July 22nd, 2020 Planning Board meeting. The applicant will change the signs by hand, the dates, and no new neighbors' letters will be mailed out since you are announcing it, since we're announcing it at the meeting. So if anybody is here for that meeting, it will not be heard. Okay. Secondly, to the board members, we've had a little bit of a problem in respect to keeping track of voting. So anytime I ask for a vote, I'm going to ask your name. Would you please turn your microphone on, say your name, and say how you vote? Okay, this way Cheryl has a better record of it. There won't be any confusion. Okay, I'm going to go down the membership now, see if everybody's here. Tom Warren is here. Mr. Young.
Present.
Thank you. Please state your name and say present.
Mr. Young is present.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mandel.
Mr. Mandel is present.
Thank you. Mr. Dell.
Robert Dell, present.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, present.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCrory.
Mike McCrory, present.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bond.
Yep, Bruce Bond, present.
Thank you very much. The only one that I don't see is Mr. Sweeney. Is he here? Is he off the screen? No? Okay. Mr. Bond, if Mr. Sweeney does not show up, you will be voting tonight?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Okay, the first item on the agenda is PB 20-30, Kibriya subdivision plans. Mr. Brenner.
Good evening. My name is Donald Brenner. I am the attorney for the project. Jamal Kibriya is also here. He is the owner of the property. This is a piece of property which is subdivided into 2 lots. We've gone through the planning board before. We've got our zoning approval. We're now here for final approval.
Thank you, sir. I'll read through the comments. Jane Slavin, dated July 1st. She has 2 comments. Department of Environmental Engineering Management, Environmental Management and Engineering, Town of Orangetown, July 6th. Bruce has 7 comments. Okay. Rockland County Planning, June 8th. I think it was read in, but I just want to make a note of it again. There are 5 comments. Rockland County Department of Health, February 28th, 2020. They have 3 comments. New York State Department of Transportation, February 21st. There's a, as per New York State Department of Transportation standards, the proposed widening of the driveway to 20 feet is not permissible, and the recommended driveway width for residential buildings are 9 to 12 feet. It should be noted that the minimum distance between the driveway openings limit and the point where the projection meets the highway edge of the pavement is to be 5 feet. Rockland County Department of Health, July 3rd. 3 comments. I also have a letter from Ismail Muhammad from DOT. A highway work permit will be required as part of the proposed action. I think that's all. Cheryl, is there anything else?
That's it. That's
Okay.
it.
I have, in respect to, the town boards being lead agent, Rockland County Highway Department says we can be no comments. Rock County Health has no further comments, and that's it. Okay, thank you. Mr. Young, questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that the applicant is okay with Mr. Peters' comments, specifically on page 2.
Yeah, we do have to straighten that out. The easement rights are there. I'm gonna have to show Mr. Peters where it is. The plant many years ago had a flood and a lot of those records disappeared, but we will show that the sewers are proper sewers and we will do what Mr. Peters wants.
Thank you, Mr. Brenner. That's what I was looking for. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mandel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things regarding the driveway. I think the last statement by New York State DOT stated that it should be 12 feet wide, which contradicts DEM's request on item 16 for a 20-foot driveway. So since it's going to be a 12-foot driveway, I think that the applicant should be able to save some of the spruce trees on the north side of the driveway.
Well, we will attempt to speak to New York State about that because there's a little conflict here between what the fire department wants and what New York State wants. New York State wins out, we will move it away from the spruce trees to save them.
Okay, yeah, because if you go 20 feet, there's no way because of the root structure. So that one was up there. Now, just a question, Cheryl. Do we need anything from Brooklyn on this or not?
What was your question?
Do we need anything from Brooker regarding this subdivision?
No, if you had read the preliminary decision, it states that they're just developing the lots when they come back for site plan review, similar to other projects that the board has approved.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Mr. Dell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share Mr. Mandel's concern. We have a situation here where Rockland County is calling for a 12-foot driveway. The state is calling for the same thing, from what my understanding is, and it's the fire department. I've never heard of a 20-foot driveway being asked for any flag lot that I've ever seen. Now, maybe they're coming across with a new policy, etc. I believe it's our purview as lead agency to make a determination on this, and I would certainly have a lot of trouble with this with a 20-foot driveway. I think a lot of those trees could obviously be saved. It's a difference between saying, well, we'll do our best to save it, and then having it as a requirement that they be saved. There are also other clusters of trees which I have probably more concern about, and that would be in the second lot, lot 2, in about the center southerly portion. You have two 12-inch cedars on the edge of the building envelope, and in the center of the building envelope, you have a 16-inch cedar, a 20-inch cedar, and a 28-inch maple. From the way you're drawing it here, you'll be able to save them. It might be a little tight on saving perhaps one of the cedars, but how is your intention, Mr. Brenner, to save those trees at this time?
We have to come back. This is strictly a subdivision of property we have to come back when the house comes in and the grading comes in. We have to come back to your board and show you how it's going to be graded. And at that time, the emphasis will be to save those trees.
All right, because you're already showing a 24-inch white pine in the actual center of the building, right on the corner, a 26-inch maple clump that you're removing them. And since you don't know where the house is, I guess this is a liberal approach to your drafting, or what? I don't quite understand.
Again, as I said, we had to show you where it could go, but we also have the stipulation we must come back to you.
Okay. Well, I do have a great deal of trouble with a 20-foot driveway. I've never seen that. If
What
anything,
happened?
would have a tendency to get people to want to come down there and do a U-turn, which is, I think, the last thing people
what has happened, I think one of the fire departments had a very large truck, which they wanted that. I don't know if Bowville's going to want it. So the only reason I'm telling the board that if I will speak to the fire department and we will work out some kind of compromise.
Well, okay, because I've never heard of a fire truck that's 20 feet wide.
Quite
So,
large.
I don't think quite that large. You know, maybe they want two of them to pass each other, if they're 10-foot wide. I really don't understand it. It just makes no sense to me, and it could be quite an expense to your client. Again, you should be able to save a lot of those trees, and I am concerned about whatever trees you're saving. I know you put down a note to provide screening, and of course, that could be nice depending on the scale of the trees. And I also realize that you're not exactly abutting a commercial residential area to the. But that being said, I also want to have the ability to comment further if there are any of the contiguous property owners who happen to have other comments. That's it for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dell. Mr. Andrews?
So let me get this straight. The driveway, the state wants them to have a 12-foot driveway, correct?
That's correct.
And they're proposing a 20-foot driveway. Would that be the same as the fire department asking for a 20-foot driveway?
And the original change was made because of the fire department, and the state is insisting it stays 12. The county wants it 12. I will go back to the fire department and tell them it's going to be 12.
Yeah, but if it's 12 foot, I mean, a fire truck is pretty big. Fire truck's got to be at least 10 foot wide.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Andrews, can I just interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
Right, and I was going to tell Mr. Dell at this time too, is we're looking at the site plan now. When they come back with the actual proposed dwelling that's going to go there, they're going to have to show exactly what is going to be there. Mr. Dell, the same thing with the trees. We don't know if the house is going to be moved from that proposed envelope, excuse me, or what. But basically what we're looking right now is just for the subdivision, and that's all. Okay, the rest of the stuff we're going to see again when they come back with the house.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Wait, we're all talking at once. Hold on just a second. Mr. Andrews has the floor.
I yield to Ms. Slavin for now.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So I believe the concern is, and it definitely can be clarified when they come back for the actual development of the site, is there a large truck coming north on 303 and the ability to make the right-hand turn and swing with the body in might be a problem if it's only 12 feet wide. So what I would suggest is that the board request that when they come back to actually develop the sites, that the turning radius of the fire truck be approved by the fire inspector and the fire department as part of that application.
Mr. Brenner, did you hear that?
Yes, it is. I do, and I think it's a wise move.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dell, sir.
Yes, just as a clarification, as I'm sure you're aware, Mr. Chairman, I've been doing this for some time. I'm aware of that. It's just that when something appears at this point on a plan, and if it's not contested, if people find it objectionable, it then seems to become a de facto entitlement. As for the fire truck coming in, obviously at the front of the driveway, you'll have to accommodate the turning radius, but the turning radius does not go the entire length of the property. And we understand also too, a lot of these things will be done. Does this mean that this lot is coming back to us for final approval after it's, we get to review it again? Or is this it? I thought this was our last review on this.
No,
This is coming back for the building.
This
To
is
us?
We're just doing a subdivision.
And we must come back when the house is graded and show the details that you're talking about. So all we're doing now is a land subdivision.
Okay, so it's coming back to this board. Thank you
That's
very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dell. Mr. McCrory.
Thank you, Chairman. Same concern for the driveway. Somebody read in the DOT comment, but I would like to read in the Rockland planning comment, just so we're on the same page here. The proposed widening of the driveway to 20 feet is not permissible, and the recommended driveway width is 9 to 12 feet. So it kind of goes along with what the other agencies are saying. I'd like to hear back from the fire department. I know from my experience, we don't pull into driveways, but maybe with the back lot, there's different accesses. So if we can get something from them by the time we look at this again, that'd be good, and we can clarify what kind of driveway we need. But right now, what in front of us is saying that 20-foot driveway is no good, and I tend to agree with that. And that's my comment on it.
Thank you, Mr. McGorry. Okay, Mr. Bond.
No, I have no issues. We'll deal with it when it comes back.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open this up to the public. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to make comment? One more time. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to make comments on this proposal?
Tom,
Yes. Yes,
Mr.
go ahead,
Sweeney,
Mr. Bond.
Sweeney is here. Sweeney is here.
Okay, very good.
So you might want to ask him if he has any comments on it.
Okay, Mr. Sweeney, I don't see you on there. Do you have, we're doing Kibriya subdivision plan. Do you have any questions or comments on this?
I got in, I was able to hear the questions. I have no comments this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Bond, you won't be voting tonight, but we still want your input.
Yep, no.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, again, last time, is there anybody from the public that wishes to make any comments on this proposal? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public.
Mr. Andrews moves to close the public portion.
Okay, Mr. Andrews closed the public session. Do I have a second?
Mandel, second.
Okay, Mr. Mandel seconds. Okay, Mr. Young.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Mandel seconded, so he says aye. Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dell?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, the public is closed. Do I have a motion to move on final on the subdivision plan?
I'll move to do the final on the subdivision plan, Mr. Andrews.
Okay, Mr. Andrews moves to move on the sub. Okay, it's going to be a final with the following conditions. Jane Slavin, July 1st, has 2. Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, Bruce Peters, July 6th, has 7. Rockland County Planning, June 8th, has 5. Rockland County Department of Health, February 28th, has 3. New York State Department of Transportation, February 21st, their letter about the widening. Rockland County Department of Health, July 3rd, has 3. There's a letter from Ismail Muhammad from the DOT, New York State DOT, saying that a work permit will be required, and that's it. Okay. Do I have a second? Go ahead, excuse me.
Chairman,
No?
before you do that,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
can we just put in a typical caveat type sentence saying that the driveway shall be restudied? I don't think anyone would object to that.
Well, I believe, as Ms. Slavin said, she wants the fire department to study it, to see if possibly at the entrance of it, that they do need that width. And if further down the line, they could make it narrower. So I think, I don't know if we should really try to say what to do. And I think that's going to really be up to the fire department.
Well, we're not saying anything other than reinforcing what Ms. Slavin said, that it should be restudied. That's all.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Slavin.
You can make a condition of the approval that they must provide the turning radius diagram on the proposed site development plans.
Okay, Mr. Brenner, are you okay with that?
Yeah, and just For the record, it's gonna be 12 feet because I did not ask you to override the county's requirements, so therefore it's coming in at 12 feet. So when we come back, we will then do what Ms. Slavin wants us to do.
Then you will have
Okay.
restudied. That's all.
Okay, Cheryl, did you get that?
Yes, I got everything.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll have a second.
Mr. Mandel, second.
Excuse me, okay, Mr. Mandel seconds. All in favor? Okay, Mr. Young?
Young is in favor.
Okay, Mr. Mandel is in favor. Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Sweeney?
Sweeney, I'm in favor. Aye.
Okay, Mr. Dell?
Aye. Mr. Dell says aye.
Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, next one is PB 20-32, 115 Route 303 Site Plan Amendment.
Tom,
Yes?
did you receive, I sent everybody an email. Brooker Engineering did a review. I received it around 5 o'clock. I emailed it off to everybody.
Hey, wait a minute, let me see if I got it. Yeah, I got one more thing at 6:23. Anyone?
I sent two things. That and a letter.
Oh, I got a letter from Cheryl McNeil.
Yes, but there's also something from Brooker Engineering.
Okay, wait a minute, I'm looking at it right now. That's all I see in that one. Let me see anything before. Because the one I got from you before was I have one at 3:30 from Booker on Amazon.
No.
Well, if we get to that point, Cheryl, would you read it for me, please? Oh, wait a minute, I got it here. I'm sorry.
You got it? Okay,
Yep, I have it. Thank you very much.
great. Okay.
Let me just get it up. All right. Okay, Mr. Brenner, I think you're here, right? Yep.
Yes, I am. I am representing the owner. We are attempting to get the architect and the owner onto the website. So far, they have not been successful, so I will do my best. I do not have that Brooker letter. Can you tell me what the conclusion was?
Okay, the conclusion, project description, they have. The applicant has clarified the proposed work and demonstrated that no new impervious area is being added. A normal amount of land disturbance is proposed and the existing drainage patterns are being maintained. The project shall result in no significant adverse impacts with respect to drainage that require mitigation. We therefore recommend that the 115 Route 303 site plan be approved for drainage subject to the above conditions, project comments, of which there are two. He also has a narrative of it, but I'll read you the two project comments. As-built grading should be shown at the clouded areas shown on the site plan, specifically at the areas of the grass blocks. 2, as-built grading should be provided at the area of the ADA spaces and leading to the front door. Those are the only two comments, Mr. Brenner.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you wish to have any other comments before I read?
No, that's the only one I
Okay.
can.
Look, let me go through the consultants' reports. Office of Building, Zoning and Planning, Jane Slavin, July 6. She has 9 comments. The Office of Building, Environmental Management and Engineering, Town of Orangetown, July 6. Bruce Peters has 6 comments. Okay, I got in there. Okay, Rockland County Department of Planning, June 11th. I don't know if it's read in, but it's going in again. They have 13 comments. I also have a letter from Ismail Mohammed from the New York State Department of Transportation. As proposed, the project has minimal impact on the state highway system, and the New York State DOT has no additional comments at this time. So evidently, you don't need a permit. I have a letter from a Rebecca Christ She's from the New York State DET. As noted in the paper, DEC previously identified the proposal need of a freshwater wetland permit. See attached. Please note that to date, the project sponsor has not contacted DEC staff to have the location of the wet water on site delineated or validated due to the okay. I also, let's see, commentary from New York State. I have a letter from the Department of Army, June 4th, Western Section. At the start of the subject, it says a permit application. So you're going to need a permit application from them. And I have a letter from Orangetown Planning Board lead agent for the Rockland County Highway. And that is all I see. Cheryl, is there anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Young, questions or comments?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mandel, questions or comments?
Yeah, just one. The Rockland County Planning list says that they shall have a writing plan. Are they coming back with the other permits, or are they still going to Akabor on this, correct?
Yeah, this is in for preliminary.
Okay.
So they're coming back.
All right, so I'd say they definitely need a lighting plan when they come back, because why would the request of Rockland County Planning number 10, and also to satisfy some of the residents in the area who've written complaint letters regarding that. And there was one from Lloyd DeNoble dated February 12th, and another one from a same person, okay, also May 5th, regarding the same problem with the lighting. So I think if they're coming back, it's my suggestion that they, when they come back for file, they must have a writing plan. That's my only comment at this time. Do we hear anything back from Palisades Parkway on this, or?
Cheryl, has the Palisades Parkway Commission been notified?
Yes.
Have we heard anything back from them?
No, we did not.
Thank you very much.
Right, no further at this time, awaiting any public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, as long, there's a couple of outstanding things here, but as long as it's only going for preliminary, I have no objection. I mean, there's some comments been made about Akabor and about the lighting and the DEC letter and also the Army letter. So preliminary, I don't see an issue, but anything beyond that, I have some questions. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dell?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, what are the hours of operation going to be of this business?
Pardon me?
What are the proposed hours of operation?
I think they were established by the zoning board. I think they could operate until around 11 o'clock at night.
Well, there's a difference between what the zoning board said the maximum was and what's being proposed at this time. Or is there no proposal at this time?
What happened here is that we were trying to get a final permit, final of the project. We were running into some difficulties because there were some minor changes that were made in the grading. Also, there was a problem as to the marquee in front of the building that somebody felt that one of the pedestals was not built properly. So we were first told we had to go to Akabor to straighten out the pedestal. Where we now ran into the problem was because of these minor changes in the grading, or as you have seen, we had to go back to the planning board. Anything that's been done to the building, this was a building that was there for many, many years. It was a factory. This was turned around. The community liked what was put in. He's built a good-looking building. If you visited it, he has minor changes. He has to give you an as-built drawing because it was not provided. and do what everybody wants, but the problem involved is that the public comes in, they don't create a problem. One car comes in and something like that. They rent out their section and they leave. I think it's one of the best uses that the town has had, especially in this particular building. So we're gonna take care of the grading. We're gonna speak to the Army. We're gonna speak to the city, and we will go to Akabor because we do have to straighten out the pedestal problem.
Okay, Mr. Brenner, you did everything except really answer my question. I'm aware of the history of the building, and it has been, has had a checkered past in terms of it actually becoming financially viable. Looks like your client has done an excellent job on it in many ways, so I don't think any of that's in question. My main focus here is to attempt to alleviate the problem of the lighting. Now, for many years, I don't know what the Akabor is doing now. What we used to have is no poles were higher than 14 feet above the grade, and these are posed at 19 feet. I realize you're not here for some of these issues, but it has become a problem because you're essentially against a residential neighborhood to the south. And if you were in, let's say, in the middle of Reynolds Park or something like that, this wouldn't be as an issue. So that's why I was trying to get an idea of the hours of operation. Now, the other not really made clear, and I don't think many people are aware of it, but many of the cameras now that are used for security purposes are IR, infrared cameras. Power required for them is rather minimal. The technology is phenomenal. So you don't really have to have everything lit all night as a brightly lit parking lot. Unless, of course, you're trying to make the area a de facto sign or whatever else you're trying to do. But in terms of the privacy of the neighbors, it's not really a requirement. And certainly not necessary, and I believe it would not be necessary even for insurance purposes. I don't claim to be an expert on insurance. What we have here is a situation where you could lower the amount of lighting and by having a little bit forward-looking approach on this and having more concern for the neighbors. And that's why I asked for the hours of operation. If someone was there, they could say it, but they could also say, well, this time we're going to go only to X, or how early you're opening, that wasn't made clear either. So I think all of this needs to be handled before I myself would be comfortable about moving this along. And also, too, I obviously want to hear what the contiguous property owners have to say. Thank you very much, Mr. Brenner. Thank you very
much. Okay, thank you. Mr. Andrews.
Yes, I do have a problem with the lighting on this property. I remember from Akabor, that was a big concern with the neighboring people of the building. And there was a lot of discussion on how high the light poles were. And don't get me wrong, the building looks fantastic compared to what it looked like before they took it over. But the lighting situation, I mean, there's a lot of things they could do. There's automatic dimming on lighting. We do it in the town on the street lights. And I too would like to see a lighting plan and what the candle watt power is going to be, or luminant power is going to be on these lights. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Mr. McCory.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, same concerns about the lighting. I didn't hear it in the beginning when he was describing the project, but Mr. Brenner, how many new light poles are going in? What's the additional for the lighting of the area?
I didn't think there was any program here on the lighting. I thought we were here because he did some grading problems, and that's why we came back to the board, because certain grading things were made, and the board wanted that shown on an as-built drawing as to how he changed the grading. I don't know of any violation of his lighting scheme, which was approved at a prior time. I will have him look into it, and this must go to Akabor anyway. And I guess at that time, we'll try to straighten out what the problem is. I guarantee you, if my client, I don't think this plan in any way calls for additional lighting. We were talking about an existing lighting layout, which has been approved. So we do have a little problem here, but he will look into it to try to work with the neighbors. If he can put some, I think what Mr. Dell, somebody said about dimmers, I think it's a good idea. Maybe we should look into it.
Okay,
I-
Mr.
I think there's gonna be some
Slavin?
comments.
Mr. Corey, hold on just a second, Mr. Slavin.
Okay, so I'm looking at the plan and I did bring up the comments, as well as the building inspector is assigned to the job. The site layout does not, the site lighting layout does not match what was approved. There are 4 lights that are in different locations. It seems that 2 have been added. So the lighting plan is different than what was previously approved, and it is actually in the project narrative. And there's also 2 existing building lights that are not shown on this plan, so that needs to be clarified as whether or not they actually exist. There's 2 areas that were curbed, proposed to be curbed, that they eliminated them and made them grass block. And the inspector was advised it was because of the trucks making the turns that was difficult for them to do that. And you'll see that that is bubbled on their diagram. And there was a difference in the handicap parking layout at the front of the building. So that is all in my comments. So the lighting is different. Perhaps the locations, because they're different now, are causing an issue, but they are different. So I agree, a lighting plan at some point is definitely critical. And in the winter months, the neighbor has complained that it's very, very bright.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bond.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Yeah, McCory first.
Yes, Mr. McCory, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm almost done anyway. Mr. Brent, is anybody here at the meeting that knows what's going on with the hours of operation and this the plan they submitted, or it's just you here?
I just got a call from the owner. He wasn't able to get into the meeting, and the architect was not able to get into the meeting. I don't know why. They were both listed to be here. Ralph was the architect, and Mr. They were not able to get in there. Mr. Donahue was not able to. He just called me around 10 minutes ago. He said he was not able to get into the meeting. So,
All right.
I'm the guys. I'm the guy to take it out on. It's okay.
All right. Just seems like there's a lot of questions with this plan, and you might not even were aware that there was changes to the lighting, and so I got issues with this plan. Maybe we could bring it back and get a better plan. So, thank you, Chairman. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. McCory. Mr. Bond.
Yeah, obviously we need to address the lighting situation, so. That's
Okay,
it.
thank you very much. Open this up to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak? Any questions or comments on this application? Okay, one more time. I'm going to open this up to the public. Anybody from the public wish to state any questions or comments on this? Okay, hearing none, I ask for a motion to close the public session. State your, turn your mic on and state your name, please.
Mr. Mandel, motion to close public portion.
Mr. Mandel closes the public session. Do I have a second?
Young seconds.
Young seconds. All in favor? Mr. Young, seconded, so he's in favor of. Mr. Mandel made the motion. Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Dell?
Mr. Dell says aye.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Brenner, as you can see, there are a lot of questions and comments between the board members and also the town. I'd really like to see a lot of this answered before we move on with this. And I think that's kind of the same concern with the board. I think there's majority of the question and comments are pertaining to the lighting. There are several alternatives and possibly you and your client might wish to look into them and then come back.
Just as a recommendation, is there a possibility, we don't have to go to zoning, can we go to Akabor and work out certain difficulties there and then come back with a full lighting plan which Akabor okays, and you'll got, because I still have to come back for final. So it was just a recommendation that we go to Akabor, see what the problem is there, because we have a problem with that pedestal, and then we will come back with a full-fledged lighting plan.
I think the board would like to see your lighting plan and your landscaping, not landscaping, but whatever work you're going to do before that you go on any further.
If that's the board's wishes, then I will ask for continuation.
Okay, is that, I think I'm looking at the board, and I think from talking to them, and I think that's kind of there's some concern. I just have one question. Ms. Slavin.
Yes, Mr. Brenner, if you could make sure that when you come back, the architect addresses the comments on my letter. 'Cause I
Yes.
think that'll help clarify a lot of the issues.
Okay, so Mr. Brenner, you're asking for a continuation?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much, sir.
I will speak to the architect. If he thinks he can answer these questions immediately, I will attempt to try to get on the next meeting. If he cannot, we will come back when we have the full lighting plan. He may have the answers to these things. I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, work it out between Cheryl and Ms. Slavin, and once you have whatever we need, they'll hook you right up and bring you in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next project is Onex Management and Amazon Delivery Center plans. I don't know who is going to be the attorney on this or do the narrative. Oh, okay. Well, you raise your hand, so what you got to do is state your name for us, please. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Tony Joffrey, member of the law firm Cuddy and Fader. I was here last time in connection with this application. We also have Seth Mandelbaum, who's the counsel for Onyx, the landlord. My colleague Daniel Patrick is here. Also in support of this application is Terrence Sonkia from Amazon Services. We have Jeff Desort, Scott Ewer, John Collins, all in support of this application. When we left your last meeting, there were a couple of comments and concerns that the board asked us to look into, and I'd like to go through those. We provided a supplemental submission that addressed those items, but I'll provide the highlights for the board. First was with respect to the site access. Amazon and the property owner, Onyx Equities, worked to address the comments and concerns regarding the use of the emergency access road between the premises and Western Highway. As we've indicated last meeting, Amazon doesn't have control over that area, but Onyx worked very hard to address this issue. And I'm pleased to report that as of this morning, the gates have been locked. This was done in conjunction and working with Fire Chief Bettman, who was provided with keys for this. So I believe that issue has been addressed to the satisfaction of the concerns that were raised last month. The next item was with respect to emergency circulation and fire suppression. The applicant has submitted revised site plans, which show the fire truck navigation of the entire site, as well as a note confirming the proposed building addition will be equipped with a fire suppression system. The next item was with respect to the concern and request for an oil water separator. In response to the comments that were raised both by the board and members of the public, Amazon has revised its plans to include new stormwater management infrastructure intended to separate oil and debris from stormwater before the water is released through the outlet pipe. This proposed technology, in conjunction with the overall reduction in vehicles on the site, are expected to improve existing stormwater conditions on the site. And I believe that as of yesterday or this morning, this was deemed an acceptable response from Booker Engineering. The applicant also confirms that SUEZ has received Amazon's application documents and has no comments as of this time. With respect to concerns for the noise and light barrier, in addition to the increased vegetative buffer and lighting improvements that have been made on the site, Amazon has incorporated a new 8-foot board-on-board fence along the western side of the van loading area to provide an increased noise and light buffer from the loading operations and van circulation. This is compared Sorry, there's a little feedback for a moment. Was compared with the prior chain link fence that was proposed. And the last item we were required to address was with respect to the air quality equipment. And the applicant proposes to install an industry standard mechanical system for air quality control within the building. This proposed system is used widely through Amazon's similar facilities across the country and is intended to ensure safer air quality during Amazon's operations. The system is equipped with both CO2 and NO2 detection systems. And I'd like to reconfirm, which we provided at the last meeting, that Amazon's vans will not idle while they're being staged outdoors or while they're being loaded indoors in order to further reduce air quality concerns. Mr. Chairman, that addresses all of the outstanding comments and questions that the board raised. We'll be happy to answer any questions you do have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. One of the questions that I have in your narrative, and I see your answer, but I'm going to ask Cheryl. Has Suez been notified on this, and have they responded to this application?
They've been notified, plans were sent to them, and we received that one letter that everybody has, the notice.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I know there were some concern of the neighbors about water quality, and they were wondering if Suez was notified about it. Okay,
Yes.
let me do the comments we have now. Jane Slavin, July 6th. She has 4 comments. Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, Town of Orangetown. This is June 22nd letter. I'm putting it back in again just in case it doesn't come back up, but it's they have 1 comment. They have a new letter, Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, July 6th. They have 3 comments. Okay, Booker Engineering, this is July 7th. They have a narrative, but the drainage review recommendation. The proposed action has provided significant drainage information that demonstrates that potential significant adverse impacts with respect to drainage can be mitigated. We therefore recommend that the DXY4-delivery station site plan be approved for drainage subject to the above project comments, of which there are 10. I have a letter, a couple letters, but one letter, it was read in, but I want to read it in again from a Cheryl McNeil on June 17th. And she had 5 questions, and I believe in your narrative, you have answered all of her questions. And I have another one from a Seth Methenbaum. And his comment, his narrative states that the owners of the property, Onyx, were not aware that the road was supposed to be locked, and they've taken corrections on it, and that the road will be locked. As of his time, it wasn't, but as of now, according to the narrative, it has been locked. Let me see now. I have to go back. Excuse me just for a moment. I have another letter. I don't know who did that, but another letter from Cheryl McNeil, and it says, to Planning Board, I would like to thank you on behalf of the many community members who signed the change.com petition. 241 members of our community signed a petition indicates they are anxious about the project, Amazon project having ill effects, of which they're not. The letter continues, it goes on, and just says that we have addressed basically all their concerns, and I believe Amazon has satisfied all of their concerns. Cheryl, is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the board. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the applicant has gone on to remedy the situations that exist there. I have no other further comments there.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Mandel.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Okay, just a couple of comments regarding it. We asked for that Knox stock box through their property back in May on 27th. That's been done, so I thank you for that. We asked for additional trees to reduce noise and enhance the barrier between the residential. You added 105 trees to that property line, and that is, thank you for that. And the closing of the road by Onyx, which we asked for on 6/15, that definitely makes a big difference. That prevents any use on Western Highway, and I thank you again for that. You seem to answer all of my questions. I know Mr. Dell had other ones, and I'll leave that to him to comment on those. But again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sweeney?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Mr. Mandel. I really thank the applicant for their efforts to address all the comments that came out of the board and came out of the public at the last meeting, and for that clear explanation of me in this meeting. So I'm going to reserve my comments for now and listen to what comes later on in the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dell?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think a lot of the other points by the other members are well taken. I think this is a far better application than we saw before. I think Amazon is living up to the standard that we would expect out of such a company. And I think that's very good. Particularly the oil separator is good. That helps the air quality. Most important probably for many of the people is the access, which has now been straightened out. There are two other areas that I had concern with. One has to do with the fence. I think that you're putting in a fence is a good thing, but 8 foot high is rather paltry for what it is you're trying to do. I don't think it'd be much of a problem if you were to extend that to 10 feet. You'd still not have any major problems with wind loads at that height. And I think that can make a very, very big difference in terms of the effect on the contiguous property. So I would like to see that fence height raised to 10 feet. The next area, I notice you're very concerned about the air quality within the building. And I think that's very good. One of my major concerns as a board member is the air quality outside of the building. Now, if you're having an air quality issue inside the building, what do? Do you have a rapid purge? Do you stop your operation, or what happens?
Mr. Chairman, first, yes, Mr. Chairman, first, with respect to the fence, I just checked with my client. We'd be happy to increase the height of the fence from 8 feet to 10 feet. And with respect to the air quality question, I'll defer to either Jeff Desort or Scott Orr.
So this is Scott Ewer with CSO. I'll turn on my camera as well. Apologize. So with respect to the air quality issue inside the building, I mean, essentially the air exhaust system and makeup air that occurs is triggered upon the detection of any carbon monoxide or nitrous oxide levels that would exceed any or pose any health hazard to anybody inside the building. So essentially the system comes on. It's again, as Tony had indicated, it is a standard system that Amazon uses throughout as a system throughout their buildings in similar applications throughout the country. So it's basically vehicle detection or CO or NO2 detection. And upon that that quality issue, the system does kick on, removes air until and brings in fresh air into the building until the levels are achieved. And I believe there is an alarm system that is locally detected when one of those detectors identifies that, so that people are aware of such an instance. So,
let me ask you one question. In respect to your filtration system, the airflow system that is normally in the building, you have a constant flow all the time, or what? Because what you were just saying now, that if there's alarms, there's sensors, that if you have a buildup of a certain product, then it kicks on. But now, do you have a airflow system that is constantly running?
Well, I don't know that I would say that it's constantly running, but, per the mechanical code, there's a requirement in the building code and the mechanical code for there to be a certain prescribed amount of air changes inside the building per the code, and we are compliant with that as a warehouse operation and through the office core and everything else. We are compliant with the code in that regard for our standard mechanical system. And then the system that addresses the particular area where the vehicles would be driving inside the building, that area is isolated or will be kind of a separate area within the building anyway, that is somewhat separated, but that will have this detection and exhaust and makeup air system in it. So the ventilation system doesn't necessarily run 24/7. It runs to meet air changes that are required per hour per the baseline code, which is a mechanical code requirement. And then this system is also a code compliance initiative. It needs to be compliant with the code for the vehicle exhaust and makeup air, and we're compliant in that regard on both of those.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I'd like to continue that. Again, I think you did everything except answer the question, or at least the spirit of the question. I understand that you will then, from what I'm gathering, you will be, an affirmative from you would be that if there was a problem, you increase the speed with some enhanced purging capabilities of your system. Is that true?
Yes, as soon as there is detection, that system kicks on automatically to exhaust air from the building and to bring in fresh air to make up and circulate the air that is taken out of the building. So yes, as soon as the detection level is reached, that is deemed, and again, those settings are it's a specific system. As soon as those kick on, that system goes to work immediately to exhaust the building. Correct.
Okay, well, that's great for you and your employees, but the people downwind are going to get basically the benefit of the backup you have with your system in terms of the toxicity. And that's what my concern is. The other concern in terms of a practical matter is if you're going to be venting all this air all the time, bringing in fresh air, bringing it out, I don't understand. You want to have some sort of a scrubber system so you could recirculate part of the air. Or is that never entered your thinking?
So I guess to address your first comment regarding what is being put into the atmosphere, I guess it's, to kind of equate it, once the vehicles are leaving the building, it's no more exhaust that's being put into the system. The concentration levels aren't any higher than what you would get normally out of the exhaust system, exhaust pipe of any one of the vans leaving the building and departing the site and driving down the street. Again, what we're talking about, toxicity and everything else, is no different than any other building, any operation, as if you were at a drive-through and again, we're not talking about idling vehicles where you're waiting in line for a Starbucks coffee and that exhaust is going to the air. We're not even talking to that level because the vehicles are literally pulling in. As long as it takes for them to pull into the building, get in a position, shut their engine off, it's really as much as it takes for them to get from that door to their spot, which is maybe 100 feet. That's as much vehicle exhaust as we're talking about. And then the doors are open, the vans start up, they drive out, and then they're on their way. So what's happening to the environment is really no different or really not any worse than what you would have if it were an open air situation and they were coming and going from the site and driving down the street. That's.
I understand what you're saying, but, Sir, former President Ronald Reagan used to say the solution to pollution is dilution. Now, if you're spreading that all over a large area, that's fine. Now, obviously, a lot more than you're going to get into a fast food drive-in because you have quite a few more vehicles. Maybe you could answer in another way. Right now, I'm just worried about one central plume from all these cars coming out in mass and drifting through someone's yard. It may not exceed some federal standards, but I don't think you would want to be near anything that was even close to that. I don't think you'd want your family there, and these people have their families here. I'm concerned from that. Now, when you're doing these purges, how many outlets do you have from the air? Is it just one, or you have 5 or 6 spread over 300 feet?
Well, it is, I don't have the exact answer on the number of exhaust fans that we are proposing for the facility at this time because we are in the process of designing that. But I would envision we're probably somewhere in the realm of maybe 4 exhaust fans that remove the air from the building. So again, it's not a heavy concentration. It's not like something blasting in your face. And again, this is a periodic thing that will kick on when it reaches a level that's considered to be, you know, in a situation for the building. I don't know that those concentrations occur on a regular basis and that we get alarm situations all the time. I mean, really enough, there's, again, I don't think this is going to get this, that you're ever going to know anything's coming out of the building, because at that point in time, it's not like it's a blast or a blast of flume of bad air. It's already, by the time it's even worked its way through the building and gotten into the exhaust fan, it's pulled out. It's already kind of being mixed with the building area, because at that time we're already bringing fresh air into the building and mixing with that anyway. So anything beyond that really ends up being something that applies to a real toxic situation that you might see in a highly industrial application like a medical lab, where you really have high toxicity of things. This, we review this all with our mechanical engineer, and the system that we're providing is pretty standard. Whether or not it be like more like an oil change place where you're pulling your car in. That's really what we're talking about. That this is like. And again, the number of trips that we're making into the building, quite honestly, it's not. We've gone through those trip counts where it happens every 20 minutes that we're getting a wave of vehicles pulling in and out of the building. But, and I would almost argue that you're probably seeing that many Starbucks are ordered within, not to compare it or to be argumentative, but I think the volume that we're talking about, if you look like a typical drive-through application, it's probably not that different than you get from a Starbucks or from a Dunkin' Donuts or a McDonald's as far as the vehicle counts. Again, we're not idling, and all those people typically are idling when they're sitting in a drive-through, and we're not idling.
Okay, so you're talking a flow of 120 vehicles an hour maximum?
I don't have those
Every
counts.
30 seconds.
Karen, you had those counts as far as what the vehicles were, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, that would be fairly fast if you had a drive-through. I understand the analogy of what you're saying, but it's not like having one McDonald's. It's like maybe having 30 or 40 of them in one location. This is what I'm trying to find out in terms of how fast the cars are coming in. And if they are coming in at this higher rate, having these exhaust fans, if you're going to still go with that system, have them spread out as far as you can across the building, I think would be far more preferable. But then the other thing is, from an energy viewpoint, in this area I have some background in, it would make a lot more sense to recirculate that air rather than, and filter it a little bit, rather than constantly reheating all the building, because then you're also creating additional carbon dioxide, et cetera, as I assume you're using gas heat. So
I don't know that the code even allows us to technically take that air that we're talking about and literally scrubbing it through and then reintroducing it to the building. I mean, that is actually, that's why the system of the makeup air, and again, it's a pretty common application, and it is compliant with how the building code and the mechanical code dictates us to handle these situations in this application. Again, with all respect, what we're providing is how the mechanical code dictates to address the situations. And again, I think the only other application that we can think of that's not similar to it, that would require such a kind of a more filtered or scrubbed system is a lab where you're dealing with truly like things that would kill you if you just breathed it in right away. That like if you're in a medical lab or a chemistry lab, where things that really will wipe you out right away. And that's the type of application, is an industrial application, that any type of scrubber system like that really becomes pretty commonplace. What we're doing here, like I said, is it is very common. It's pretty industry standard. With all due respect to the concerns, I think we're the van leaves the building and probably generates more exhaust from leaving the building to getting to the curb than it does in the application of entering the building, getting to its spot, and shutting off its engine.
And yes, sir, in all due respect to you and your employers, we are familiar, the board is familiar with standards, codes, etc. That's one of the things we obviously have to learn. My main concern here, again, is that talking about purging, and what I'm asking in terms of what could be a solution, if you could make some sort of warranty or whatever you wish to say, that these will not all be discharged from one central location. You could have 4 or 5 fans, as we know, in an area 30 by 30 feet, or you could have them spread over a couple hundred feet.
Yeah, no, they will be dispersed through the area of the addition where the vans are driven. And that's part of it too, is that they definitely will not be one central plume, because then you're taking that thing and you're pulling all the air in one direction, which is going to now concentrate it. So we will be providing certainly more than one exhaust fan, and it will not be one central thing. It will itself be kind of trying to already diffuse the air within the building, because we don't want a concentration. So yeah, I can definitely say that we are not proposing one fan that's going to remove everything.
From one location of the fans. That's really the question.
Yeah, they will be dispersed throughout the area where the vehicles are located, and I believe we also will have them at the areas immediately inside the building, because there's different sections of the building. We're going to have a loading area, which will be primarily walled off from the remainder of the warehouse as it is. Inside the building, it'll be a separate wall. So that would be the area where we're anticipating this. It is a concentrated area within the building addition where we were previously proposing the canopy to be. So that's primarily where these fans will be located, but they will be located dispersed throughout this area of that loading area.
Okay, the word I was looking for is dispersed, and you give me that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Mr. Andrews.
I just want to commend Onyx and Amazon for coming back with all the concerns of the public and meeting those concerns. I want to thank you all for that. That's my comments right now.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Mr. McCory.
Thank you, Chairman. When the plan first came around, I didn't support it. There was a lot of issues with it, but the company has listened to the board, has listened to the neighbors, and thank you guys for that. Just 2 comments. I understand Mr. Dell's concerned about the air quality, but I know from my experience, these indoor garages and loading vehicles, the biggest issue with the exhaust will probably be CO. And you'll have a fire alarm system there that will go off when the CO level is reached, I assume, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And then that'll be tied into a central station, and that'll inform the fire department that a CO alarm went off. And the answer to any CO emergency is actually to dilute it into the air. So once CO enters the air, it becomes safer. That's the biggest exhaust problem there. It won't be a bad idea if it is dispersed into the air. So that's just wanted to make that comment there.
If I could, and again, I don't mean to interrupt here. I want to make sure that we're clear in response to what I had said about, I don't know that the system is tied into the fire alarm system in the central station to the fire department, because I don't think that the levels that we're talking about when the system reacts to it, I don't think that it's like send the fire trucks, call the fire department, there's something majorly going on wrong here and people are going to be dying. It's literally a system that picks up on the fact to make sure that those levels don't get to that really, emergency level. It's literally meant to nip it in the bud and begin to start to introduce fresh air and remove air. Because again, the thresholds are such that it's designed to exhaust to keep the building occupants safe. And believe me, those levels are, they're pretty good thresholds to make sure that people themselves aren't getting lightheaded and working in an unhealthy situation. So and it's what you're going to experience on, firsthand right there. It's going to start taking it away so that it doesn't get to those alarming levels that all of a sudden you're getting nuisance calls to the fire department. It's not, I believe the system has those provisions for sure that if it gets to that point and something is really gone wrong, it will say something, but I don't think the normal thresholds to bring the exhaust fans on are going to trigger that system and start calling 911, if you will. So I just want to make sure yes, the design is the system's designed as it is supposed to per these detection systems, as you would see in other similar operations, to make sure that the occupants are safe and that we bring in fresh air and exhaust. And again, I really don't anticipate that anybody's going to even know that it's running. You're not going to smell exhaust fumes all the time. Because again, we're not talking about that level of intensity and concentration at that point in time. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that answer, for clearing that up.
Mr. McCory, can I add one thing?
Yes.
May I just add one thing real quick? And operationally, Amazon does conduct drills in case there's any of these types of emergencies. And I just asked Taryn, has, in your experience, have any of these emergencies or alarms ever been tripped?
Sure. Yeah, I can testify on that. So I've been in Amazon operations working in different types of buildings. I've worked in delivery stations just like this prior to this. And in those 4 years, I have not seen a single emergency within the operation based on some sort of air quality issue. I mean, there have been some, fire alarms, but that's more, nothing catastrophic, just someone hitting the fire alarm, but nothing major. I've never seen that in 4 years of my experience.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. My last comment is, I know you guys listened to the board when we mentioned about the oil water separator for the site, and thanks for adding that onto the plan. Just comment 2 for the Department of Environmental Management. Did you guys see that comment? The department recommends that this water quality feature be installed in at least 2 catch basins upstream. Is that you guys have that on the plans, or?
Jeff, can you address that?
Tony, I could speak to that. Yes, can. Yeah, no, we received that comment and we understand it and we will comply to that.
All right, thank you. That's all I wanted to have. No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bond, before I call on you, I have one quick comment. In respect to the air quality, I know you're saying that your filtration or your ventilation system is on an alarm system, and that if the ratios get too high, it will turn on. Let me ask you a question. Hypothetically, if your alarm system doesn't turn on for some God-foreseen reason and the levels go very high, is there a backup to notify the fire department?
I don't. I know that at various locations throughout the building and throughout the space, there are multiple detectors. I don't know, it's almost like when you have smoke detectors in the building or, heat detection, duct detection. I guess at the end of the day, I don't know what happens when a fire alarm system or whatever fails to work. I guess I really don't want to misspeak with respect to that. I do, and I don't know of a system failure either. I mean, it's like it's almost. And
I understand what you're saying, but my question is, if for some reason you had a catastrophic failure, would your system be capable of picking up carbon monoxide and any of these other standards that was supposed to turn the system on but didn't, but at that point would notify the fire department. Could you just, look into that for me?
Yeah, we will, like I said, in the
Never
interest
failed,
of
but
not,
God forbid.
yeah, in the interest of not misspeaking, I will certainly try to obtain more information on the various alarm states and reporting opportunities that we have. And certainly give that information to you. I do not want to misrepresent the client or the system by providing information that I don't have an answer to. So we can absolutely address that comment and provide some additional information on it.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, but there's
Mr. Chairman,
multiple detectors. So I think if one detector fails, another detector is going to is going to pick it up. You'd have to have a total failure of the system's ability to detect. I mean, the system would have to be shut down. It's almost like your entire fire alarm system would have to fail in order for it to not pick up, smoke or heat somewhere. But on the same note, that's what would have to happen here too. But we'll provide some information. We'll talk to our engineers and you get confirmation of that. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bond.
Yeah, I just think, locking that gate is going to be huge for the community over there for Western Highway. And the landscaping and the additional height on the fence is also a good thing. Just one thing, I'll throw it out there tonight because I'm not voting on this application, but I was just wondering if anybody from Amazon had thought about, I know they're trying to be good neighbors, and they have that Save the Turtle project going on along Western Highway. And has Amazon given any consideration to making a donation to that project? Just throwing it out there. You don't have to answer. It's something for consideration.
You guys
think the board can
do.
do.
Just if you do, you do. If you don't,
Duly noted, this is the first time I hear it.
It would be a nice
Duly
gesture. That's all I'm saying. So
it'd be a nice thought. I agree. Okay. I'm going to open it up to the public. If any of the public wishes to speak on this. Do I have someone in the public?
Hi,
Please state your name and your address, please.
Cheryl McNeil, 56 Old Western Highway in Blauvelt.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak. We set up a change.org petition, so I think you all know that we had about 241 community members who were very interested in this project and expressing some anxiety. And I want to thank you, board members and Amazon, for listening to the community and addressing almost all of our concerns. So we're very grateful for that. Thank you, Mr. Dell, for bringing up all of those issues today, and Mr. Bond for suggesting a donation perhaps to the Turtles of Western Highway, if that's at all possible. That would be greatly appreciated. The only remaining issue that I think we would like addressed is oversight and monitoring, and how what are the protocols for the public to file complaints, if there are any. I hope there will not be any, if the agreements are not abided by, with regard especially to the oil catchment and runoff, and the noise and lighting, and most especially with the idling. So we're really hoping that you do in fact abide by your agreement not to allow the vans to idle, but what kind of oversight will there be? What will the town do? But other than that, thank you very much, and we really appreciate your listening to the community. Thank you.
Okay. In respect to your comments, the only thing that I think I can say and the board can say that is, if for some reason they do long-term idling, they do something with the lighting or the noise or anything else, which I think they won't do, but if they do, then either you call the police department. If you can't get satisfaction there, you call the building department. And, you're going to get satisfaction between one of them. Okay, Amazon seems to be, they want to do everything they can to help. They're in business, so they're looking to, do what they have to do, but they spent a lot of time and effort to reply to the concerns of the neighbors. They've done an excellent job. And personally, I really have to give them a round of applause for that. They've done a very good job. But if you have any concerns, if they don't live up to it, just you call the police department or the building department. They'll handle it. Okay. Is there anybody else in the public that wishes to question any comments? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, this is Vanessa Lappins from 659 Western Highway. I want to echo what Cheryl has said. I want to thank Amazon and the planning board. I think this is an excellent example when business community and our legislative groups get together and collaborate on a solution that helps everyone. I think oversight is definitely going to be an issue, especially with the locked gates, and a turtle donation would be fantastic. But generally, I want to thank everybody. This has been a great process, and I appreciate Amazon coming to the table with positive recommendations and being really a good member of the community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else in the public that would have any questions or comments? I'll be right back to you,
Yes,
Mr. Dell.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Carolyn Hill, 849 Western Highway. Just thank you, ditto to everyone who is thanking this whole process, and thank you for listening to the community. And regarding oversight, I would just ask that and one additional step be taken in after something hopefully will never be reported, but let's say it happens and something is reported by a community member to the police. I would just request that there be a procedure in place that is known to all police and Amazon to say, how is this going to be addressed? What is the avenue for communicating any kind of status on the resolution so that that status can get back to the public? It can be very frustrating when you do make a complaint or request and there is no follow through or status update. It seems it might possibly fall on deaf ears. So I would just ask that that be added, that there be a procedure in place with people who are charged with the resolution to an issue. And that's my main comment. Other than thank you, Mr. Vaughn, for recommending a turtle donation. It is definitely a community project and brings us all closer, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask our town attorney if there's any way we can implement that. I really don't think there is, but I just figured I'd ask you.
I think the process is the building department. I'm not so sure that the police department is the appropriate. I don't know if any of the complaints we're speaking about would arise to violations of that the police department would be the appropriate. I think probably the building department, and then the building department can file violations, and that could end up in justice court. So that's one procedure that's already in place. Another procedure is to bring them back. If the violation is serious enough, there's a possibility of a stop work order. So not saying that that is likely or that would happen, but there could be a stop work order. And it's also a possibility that they could be brought back before this board for not following what they were supposed to follow. So I would say that that is the procedure that is in place.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I would just,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would add,
Okay, hold on, Mr. Dell. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I would just add one additional thing, as indicated in the past, that when the existing tenant of the 400 Oratani building vacates, we will still need to go back for additional performance standards review before the zoning board of appeals. And I'm confident that if Amazon is not living up to the end of the bargain.
Hold on, excuse me just a second. Okay, thank you, Mr. Dell. There was background noise. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
As I was saying, that there's an existing tenant of the 400 Oratani building, And when that tenant vacates, Amazon will need to go back for additional performance standards review before the zoning board of appeals. And I'm confident if Amazon's not living up to its end of the bargain, that that's an opportunity for the neighbors certainly to provide comments to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dell, you had another question? Turn your
Yes,
mic on.
thank you, Chairman. Just a furtherance of what Mr. Bond said. Please contact me through the board. I'd be happy to make a donation to the turtles. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the public wishes to make any question or comments on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead. I don't know. Who's that? Mr. Mendel?
No. There's also an online reporting for complaints through the town. It was set up after the roof problems with the roof. There's a air quality and other things that can report. It definitely is not a police situation, but there's an online form that they can get through the town of Orangetown to make complaints. So this or any other thing that they say. Just for their information.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, anybody else in the public wish to make any questions or comment on this? One more time. Anybody in the public wish to make any questions or comments on this? Okay, hearing none, I ask for a motion to close public.
I move to close the public portion.
Mr. Andrews, do I have a second?
Mr. Mandel seconds.
Mr. Mandel seconds. Okay, Mr. Young.
Aye. Mr. Young.
Mr. Mandel seconded. Okay, Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Dell.
Dell says aye.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Andrews made the motion. Mr. McCory.
Aye.
Okay, and I say aye. Okay, the public is closed. I think that the Amazon has done a nice job on us, and I believe that we could probably move on with it. And if that's the case, I'm asking for a motion of lead agent.
Mr. Mandel, for lead agency.
Okay, Mr. Andrews says lead agent. Okay, do I have a second?
Mr. Mandel seconds.
Mr. Mandel seconds. Okay, Mr. Young, aye or nay?
Young, aye.
Okay, Mr. Mandel second. Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Dell.
Aye, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews made the motion. Mr. McCory.
Aye.
Okay, and I say aye. Okay, that's second. Okay, who makes a motion for neg deck?
Motion for neg deck, Mr. Mandel.
Mr. Mandel makes a motion for neg deck. Do I have a second?
McCrory
Young
second.
seconds.
Okay, Mr. Young seconds. Okay, Mr. Young second. Mr. Mandel made the motion. Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Mr. Dell.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, aye.
Thank you. Mr. McCory.
Aye.
Thank you. And I say aye. Okay. That's it, right? On that part. So now, can I have a motion for preliminary with conditions?
I move, make the motion for preliminary.
Okay, hold on just a second, Mr. Slavin.
The applicant did request preliminary and final site plan consideration of this application, just so that the board's aware.
Okay, does the board have any problem with giving final with conditions? Have any questions on
Young
that?
says aye.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
okay, wait a minute, let me,
Mr.
let me,
Chairman, Assistant
Yes.
Engineer with Akabor's review.
okay, I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
I wanted to know if Akabor is going to have a chance to look at this. I assume they are. But if we're giving final, doesn't that preclude Akabor from having much input if we've already got final?
Well, usually what we've done in the past is we've given a final with ACA board giving them final, if with their addition. So if they have conditions, they would add them up, but usually it's a final with condition that they get final from ACA board. That's we've
All right,
done
that'd
that.
be sufficient. Thank you.
Okay, so let me go back. So Can I have a motion for final with conditions on this?
Young recommends final.
Okay, Mr. Young says, makes a motion for final. The conditions are, okay, Jane Slavin, July 6th. She has 4 comments. Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, June 22nd, has 1 comment. Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, Town of Orangetown, July 6th. Bruce Peters has 3 comments. Booker Engineering, July 7th, has 10 comments, and they recommend drainage. Okay, this is just a letter from, of course, from a neighbor. I'm also going to put in the narrative. Where the heck is it? Excuse me. I have a narrative on July 1st from Cuddy and Fetter. And I also have a letter from, what the heck is it? I would lose my head if I wasn't attached to him. There was a letter from the owner of the property stating, okay, here it is, from Rockland, Goldberg, and Staub, dated June 24th, and they said that they were going to put the lock boxes in, which, from what I understand, have been done. But I just wanted to add their letter. Okay, Cheryl, I think that is it.
Tom, you have to go over all the letters going back to the first meeting.
Okay, no problem.
Just the package I gave you. And also, how do you want me to put in those letters as conditions?
They're not conditioned. I just wanted to make a note of them. So they're not a condition, so I didn't have to put them
Okay,
in.
fine. Okay, we're good then.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, on that letter, just make sure you make a note that it's 10 foot, 8 foot on that. It's on the letter.
Mr. Dell, do me a favor, shut your microphone off. There's background noise. Okay, Mr. Mayor, what'd you say?
Okay, regarding the letter that you're putting in, it says an 8-foot fence that should be amended to say 10-foot fence.
Well, they were putting it as record, but they don't have to put it in as a condition, right?
It should be in as a condition.
But I believe every one of their concerns, well, they can't make a condition. We're the ones that make the condition. All they did was concerns, which I think that we've had Amazon address, or they're in the process of addressing.
I'm not sure who that is. Please turn it, Mike. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
the fence
Yes, ma'am.
shown on the proposed drawings is 8 feet. So if the board wants it as 10 feet, you should specify that.
Okay.
We have no objection.
I think the applicant said that they had no problem with that. So Cheryl, make that a condition that the fence.
Yeah, I have it already as a condition.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes, go ahead,
Yes,
Mr.
I
Bell.
think the usual way we phrased that in the past is, as per the applicant's representation, the height of the fence will be increased to 10 feet, and this will be shown on the plan.
Okay, I believe Cheryl said that she had made that notation.
Okay, just making sure of the wording, because sometimes it doesn't come out right, and that's what's been very effective in the past. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, going back to the old correspondence of Office of Building and Zoning, June 11th, Jane Slavin. It's basically a narrative. I'm getting them. I think.
May 28th?
Yes,
That's
okay,
the
May
DOT.
22nd, Department of Building, Zoning and Management, Jane Slavin. She has 7 comments. May 20th, Department of Environmental Management and Engineering. This has 16. Booker Engineering, May 26th. They have 10. Rockland County Planning, May 22nd. They have 8. Rockland County Drainage, May 7th. It's a narrative. Okay, Rockland County Sewer Department, Sewer District Number 1, May 26th. They have 2 comments. Mike Betterman, Fire Inspector, May 22nd, as a narrative. Then we're going to New York State Park and Recreation, dated May 12th. It's a narrative. Then we have from Kristen Pacific, a letter dated May 14th. And Cuddy and Feeder, May 13th, narrative. And a lead agent from Rockland County Department of Highways, dated May 13th. Then I have just some, should I add the letters to Cheryl or not?
What's that?
I have letters from Carolyn Hill.
No, those aren't conditions. Did you mention New York State DOT? May
Yes, I did.
28th?
If it was here, I believe I did. Let me go back.
Okay.
No, I did Parks and Rec. I didn't get to New York State DOT yet. I don't know. I still have some more stuff. Okay, let me go back. Let me keep going. I have a letter from Carolyn Hill dated May 27th. A letter from Cheryl McNeil, May 27th. Letter from Tim Kolka, May 27th. And that's all. I don't have that DOT, Cheryl.
It was in the June 15th package.
Yeah, I'm getting close. I hope. Cheryl, for some reason, I don't have it. What is this? Here, I probably have it here.
It looks like it's an email.
Oh, that's probably why I looked over it. I have New York State Parks and Recreation. Is that it?
No, this is DOT. It's an email to me. It's right after the June 10th Cuddy and Feeder letter.
Cheryl, why don't you just read it into the record as a condition? That's sufficient.
Okay.
Okay, please do.
Please provide the electronic synchro files for New York State DOT review. As a mitigation measure, please have the applicant provide a modem and transfer switch for traffic signal R-107 at Route 303 and Bradley Hill Road. For your reference, we have included specifications for these. In addition, Bradley Hill Road should be restriped to provide 2 lanes approaching Route 303, and it should extend to Flower Lane intersection, left turn only lane, and a through right lane turn. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And that, that was all we were missing, correct?
Excuse me?
That was all we were missing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can I have a second on that, please?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews seconds. Okay, Mr. Young, in favor? Final with conditions.
I proposed it.
Okay, Mr. Mandel.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Dell.
Mr. Dell says aye.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews made this the second. Mr. McCory.
Mr. McCrory says aye.
Okay, and I say aye. So, yes, you got your final with condition, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your efforts.
Good
Mr. Chairman,
project. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Mandel here. I just want them to know, for the record, that any contribution that they may give or not give is not a condition on the passing of this project. With the turtles, has nothing to do with the project. If they want to, they can. If not, they don't have to. I just want on the record that it is not a condition of any manner, or shape, or form.
Thank you. I kind of said that to them before. It's strictly up to them.
Okay, just fine, confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay.
Thank you all. We appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with your project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next project is PB 20-31 Henry Kaufman Campground Site Plan, 92Y and Camp 12. Mr. Brenner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you remember correctly, at our prior meeting, the board was ready to go forward giving approval to the project. However, there were some questions related to the environmental situation and that they were not ready to give seeker approval. The changes were made to the seeker application, which Ms. Slavin requested that we do. We submitted it the next day. You have it before you, and we now think we've met all the requirements so that we can proceed with the approval.
Thank you, sir. Let me go.
For the record, the parties that were at the prior meeting, that being Mr. Coran, Avi Engard, Victoria, David Schmelzer, and Jerry Schwabel and Donna Manfredi are all here.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Department of Building, Zoning, Planning, and Enforcement, Jane Slavin, July 1st. She has two comments. Let me read them. Submission review, revised LEF is prepared by Gerard, whatever, you know who they are. Okay, number one, comments from my June 22nd, 2020 letter in reference to 92Y and 12 trails areas still apply. And number two, the LEF has been revised and appears to be in order. And I also have a narrative dated July 8th from Digny Tung and Mr. Schwalbe. And I believe everything else has been read in.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Young, questions or comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, as long as these, the report has been altered correctly, the EAF, I think we're good to go on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mandel.
Yeah, they seem to have corrected the form. I have no other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, no comments at this time.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Dell.
I think all our questions have been answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dell. Mr. Andrews.
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCory.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I looked over the environmental form. No questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bond.
I'm good with it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anybody for the public that wishes to speak on this? One more time. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak on this? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to close the public?
Mr. Andrews moves to close the public portion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Mr. Mandel.
Mr. Mandel seconds. Okay, Mr. Young.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mandel second. Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dell.
Mr. Dell says aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Andrews made the motion. Mr. McCory.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I say aye. We can move right on this, because I think basically everything has been resolved. Jane, is this another one that we can do preliminary and final together, or do they have to come back? No, yet, no
They
what?
have to come back. Yes, they're
Okay,
only here for preliminary.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion for lead agent.
Young puts the motion up.
Mr. Young makes a motion for lead agent. Do I have a second for lead agent?
Mr. Mandel.
Mr. Mandel's does. Okay, Mr. Sweeney, in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dell?
Mr. Dell says aye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. And I say aye. Okay. Motion for neg deck?
Young.
Okay, Mr. Young makes a motion for neg deck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mandel. Okay, thank you. Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dell?
Mr. Dell says aye.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Thank you, and I say aye. Okay, preliminary with condition, okay, motion for preliminary with conditions. Getting carried away.
Motion for preliminary with conditions, Mr. Mandel.
Okay, Mr. Mandel makes a motion for preliminary condition, and the only conditions that I see are Jane Slavin, July 1st. There's 2 items. Okay, do I have a second? I think, Cheryl, is that all I have?
You have to go back to the June 24th meeting and look at those letters.
Okay. Okay, I have from Office of Building, Zoning and Planning, June 22nd, Jane Slavin. She has 5, but they're main but there's subparagraphs. There's actually 2 pages of it. So I don't know how you want to listen. All right, Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, Bruce Peters, dated June 22nd. He has 22 items. Booker Engineering, June 24th. He has 8 items. Rockland County Department of Planning, June 8th, 10 items. Rockland County Drainage Agency. This is just a narrative on a notice of the violation, which the applicant has already explained. I have a letter from the New York State Rockland County Drainage, again, in respect to that violation, which has been explained. Rockland County Sewer District Number 1, June 18th, have 2. I have a memo from Michael Betterman, Chief Fire Inspector, June 23rd. All new roads must be stabilized to 75,000 for emergency vehicles. What is the purpose of the vehicle lift in the garage, which has been explained? A one-time fee for a hazardous material permit of $200 is required. I have a letter from Donna Brenner, March 20th, which is a narrative. I have a letter from New York State DEC dated June 17th. And I have Rockland County lead agent from Rockland County Planning, Rockland County Highway. That's it. Is that it, Cheryl?
Did you say the Rockland County Planning letter, June 8th?
Let me see. I did say Rockland County Planning, but I don't remember the date.
Okay, 10 items.
Yes, 10 items.
You mentioned it, yeah.
All right, let me just check, make sure I did mention it, please. Yes, Rockland County Plan, June 8th has 10 items.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, do I have a second?
Mr.
Young
Andrews,
second.
Okay, Mr. Andrews, seconds. Okay, Mr. Young?
Young says aye.
Okay, Mr. Mandel?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Dell?
Mr. Dell says aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
I second it. Aye.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, you got it, Mr. Brenner.
Good night, gentlemen.
Okay, we have other business. Thank you. I got a letter from Cheryl, who got from Mr. Mandel. And I'd like to read it in, because we have to we have to approve the minutes, and this is pertaining to one of the applicants. So, let me, where the hell is it? I just had, here it is. Is it? Yes, okay, no. Bear with me, please. I'm losing my mind. It's not too big, not too far away either. But the letter was pertaining to SMK Green Subdivision. And okay, let me read. Okay, for your information, Mr. Mandel would like to add a condition to SMK Green Subdivision. And I told him to bring it up the meeting. Okay, we held that June 24th. He held that at the June 24th meeting. The board ruled that the applicant would return to the planning board after ZBA prior to ACA board for the review. The reason for this, and I agree with Mr. Mandel, is that right before the meeting, SMK submitted a new plan, which the board did not get a chance to review. So there were some changes on it. Initially, there were 2 variances needed. By this change on the plan, they did 2 things. They took the driveway off of Green Street and put it onto Western Highway. And they also changed the area on one of the properties so that it did conform to the 15,000 square feet. So I believe that I think Mr. Mandel was right in suggesting this. I don't know if if the town board agrees with it, but or if the rest of the board members agree with it. But I do believe that we should look at it to make sure that it's done correctly. Does any of the board members have any problems with that, of adding that as a condition?
Mr. McCrory, I agree. I feel like we didn't have enough time to actually review those plans, and that'd be nice to have that as a condition.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna go right down the line then. Mr. Young.
I agree with Ms. McCrory.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Mandel authored the letter, so he agrees with it. Mr. Sweeney.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I didn't get to see
Okay,
any of
all right. Okay, thank you. Mr. Dell.
For the record, I'd abstain from that project, but I certainly agree.
Okay, what is the condition? What is the condition you're voting on?
That want to see it back because we didn't get a chance to look at those plans because you had initially variances, and with the new set of plans, 2 things. You took the flag lot driveway off of Green Street and put it on Western Highway. And secondly, you did an area change on one of the lots so that it was conforming, so that it was 15,000 square feet, not 14, whatever it was, 14.7. So those are the two reasons. We want to look at those plans.
Well, I think you should speak to your attorney. I don't think that's legal, what you're doing. You have a legitimate move that you passed something which was lesser effect than the board that what you had. You had an approval from you had an approval from seeker, you had an approval from a preliminary from the planning board. If you say you want to see it after they go to the ZBA, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but please, you're doing something I don't think is legal. I think you should speak to your town attorney.
Yeah, I'm not clear. Are you vacating your last vote, or are you just saying they can go to ZBA? You just want to see it after it gets approved by ZBA. That's what you're saying, right? You're not vacating the approval.
Correct. We want to say that what we had said is that the normal process is they go through us to ZBA to Akabor. Okay. What we had said is they want to go from us to ZBA back to us before Akabor. That's the only thing we're doing.
I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think it's legal. I'm just
okay.
I'm curious what
Ms. Slavin, go ahead.
I do have a question. I do believe that Mr. Brenner was not the legal representation at that hearing.
Yes, I was.
It was, okay, I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, I was.
To be careful,
meeting, it was the second meeting.
Second meeting, okay.
Yes.
And again, Mr. Brenner, I think they are correct. It was discussed. It did not get in as a condition. They're not rescinding their approval. They just want to make sure it comes back to them.
I have no problem coming back, just as long as I understand it. That is a legitimate preliminary approval.
No,
I think everyone concurs it's a legitimate prelim.
Right.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. It is a little bit unorthodox, but when I was looking last week at the town code, I think the planning board does have the authority to do things like that. So it's unorthodox, but I don't find it illegal.
Yeah, what they did is legal. They did it legal, and the question involved is they're now asking, would the applicant come back after you get zoning board approval? I have no problem with that, but the applicant's coming back because the board's asking them to do it. I don't think it should be a condition. The board is requesting that the applicant come back, and he will, but that's not a condition because that's already got preliminary approval.
We're asking you to come back before you go to Akabor. Once you go,
my client will.
And to get your approval, but normally you would go to Akabor at that time. We're asking you to come back to us so that we can review those plans. Then if we agree with the plans, then we're allowing you to go to Akabor. So basically, you're not doing it because you have to come back to us after Akabor anyway. So it's kind of almost the same thing.
And remind me, this was the one where the application was made like at 5 o'clock. There was plans submitted. Is that the one? Yeah, especially given that, Mr. Brenner, I don't think that's, I don't think it's illegal. And I think it's.
Well, please understand, the board has had these kind of changes made. That's the power of the board. The board has a right to turn around and say, this looks like a better layout. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 layouts. The board had a right to turn around and say, this is a better layout. That's the one we want. That's why the board gave the approval. Again, as I said, I have no doubt that my applicant will come back, but please understand, if the zoning board gives their approval as to the one zoning thing that we need, this is a legitimate zoning board and preliminary approval. I think
I would agree with that. If they tried to rescind after, that would be problematic, Mr. Brenner. I agree with that.
I don't even know when he's going to Akabor for what. Each one has to come back with each individual house. So I don't even know why he's going to go to Akabor. But if you guys want to send him there, he'll go there. But please understand, he has to come back when he shows his grading and how he's going to build the houses. So.
And Mr. Brenner, when you come back before Akabor, you can move that Akabor be waived for that very reason, and perhaps this board will grant it. So that may be of benefit to your client.
Again, as I said, I think my client will do it, I just wanted for the records to understand that there's a legal preliminary approval here.
Yeah,
That's all.
I think no one's debating that, Mr. Brenner.
Mr. Brenner, everybody's concern is that the plans were submitted at the 12th hour, that we did not get it's a change. If there was a small modification to the plan where there wasn't a big change, but there was a big change, there's two big changes on it. And I think that's why the board would like to see it again.
However, please understand, there was a split board on this situation, and one of the problems that the board had was one was an area, and the second thing the board had is that it was an exit going to Green Street. So they turned around and put it into Western Highway, which the board was satisfied with, and there was no longer an area variance needed. So therefore, all of the two things that the board was unhappy with went away. So in other words, this design met the requirements of the board. Please understand, I have no problem with my client coming back to show it to you, but please understand, this is a perfectly 100% legal presentation.
Okay. Well, okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the board members if they want to make this as a condition.
Can I ask Jane, do you think this is appropriately a condition, or can you just direct that they come back as the building inspector? Do you think it's appropriate to do add on a condition now, or do you have the authority, do you think, to just have them come back after ZBA?
I would think if the ZBA requested changes to the proposed plan, then I would then have the authority to send it back because it would not align with the preliminary approval that was granted. However, in this case, since it hasn't been done this way before, I would feel more comfortable if it was a condition. And Rick, I agree with you that it also gives the applicant an opportunity when they come back, they receive ZBA approval, they can ask for final and ask for ACABOR to be waived as part of that application. It may actually save them the requirement of going to ACABOR. At this point, the applicant did not ask for ACABOR to be waived at the last hearing. So right now they have to go to ACABOR. So if the applicant's representation now, Mr. Brenner, says they shouldn't be going to ACABOR, that's in his judgment, but right now it is a condition of the approval.
That's correct. That's correct. And so
So it gives
therefore,
an opportunity to request for that to be waived, which was not done at the last meeting.
well, can I ask the board, based on this, if this becomes a condition, can you also then rule on final at that time too? If we've got ZBA approval and we're going to ask for a waiver of ACABOR, will the board consider at that time a final application?
Well, I think we still want to see it back.
Right, Mr. Chairman. So as I was saying, you can make it a condition that they come back before they go to ACABOR. If the board is comfortable and the applicant requests it, they can ask for a final and ask for ACABOR to be waived at the next meeting.
I don't think there'd be a problem. I think what the board wants to do is they want to look at the new set of plans. And if they're happy with the new set of plans, then they may go in that direction. I can't speak for the board. But if you advertise it when you come back, that it's coming back for final, we can do it that way. We can make that, we have that option to do it.
Okay.
You could grant, if you go to ZBA and get the one variance that you need, and if you come back and the board is very happy with the plans, I think at that time, the board may be willing to give you final and waiver you going to ACABOR, which would save you a step, as Ms. Slavin had said.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the board comfortable with that? Mr. Mandel, you made the statement in the letter. Are you happy with the way it's going?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mandel, are we going to get comments from Rockland County Planning, the Fire Department, highways regarding the new plan as it goes out onto Western Highway and adjacent to the fire district?
Well, I think that he's going to have to, I don't know, because turn the whole thing around, because now we're coming out on a county road, I think we've added a little bit more of a problem versus a town road.
Well, they have to give me a permit. They have to give me a road permit. If they don't give me a road permit, it's not going to work.
I think we need their comments. Director Slavin's looking to get on.
Right, so Mr. Mandel, they have to go to ZBA. These agencies will be notified as part of the ZBA application. Those comments will come in as part of ZBA. When they apply for final, they will also be circulated again, since those agencies have not seen the revised plan. So all those agencies will have an opportunity to provide their comments, and the board can consider that at the request of final based on the applicant requesting that when they return.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. But this just goes to show why we shouldn't approve anything before we see a final. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the other board members having any issues about making that a condition? Yes, Mr. Young.
No issues.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mandel, okay, Mr. Sweeney?
Like I said, I wasn't there, so I'm not
Okay,
gonna.
that's right. Okay, Mr. Dell, you excuse yourself.
Yes, I'm also abstaining from this.
Okay, Mr.
vote.
McCory. Mr. McCory, you okay with that as the condition?
Yeah, like I said, I said at the last meeting, none of the board members actually saw the new plans, so I agree
Okay,
with that
thank you.
condition.
Thank you, and Mr. Bond? You also agree, because you were voting.
I think it's over. I don't really see the need for it, but yeah.
Okay.
I'll go with what just the board wants to do.
Okay, thank you very much. So Cheryl, add that as a condition. You sent me a copy of the verbiage, because I think Mr. Mandel does, and in my mess here, I misplaced it somewhere, but, okay, so.
Okay, I have it.
Okay, thank you very much. So, excuse me, I need a motion to approve, I think it was June 24th minutes as corrected.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mandel.
Mr. Mandel makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Mr. Andrews seconds.
Mr. Andrews, second. Okay, Mr. Bond?
Aye.
Yes or no? Okay, Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Andrews, yeah, Mr. Andrews, did you say aye? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Dylan Sweeney, Mr. Mandel made a motion, Mr. Young?
Young says aye.
Okay, and I say aye. Okay, so the motions are approved. Yes, Mr. Dell?
Yeah, I'm just saying I'm voting aye for the minutes.
Right, I did. I bypassed you.
Okay, no, that's okay, but I would like to bring something up to the board when we're all done. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's finish one thing at a time. Okay, so Cheryl, the minutes were approved as corrected.
Okay, we
Okay,
need June 15th now. June 15th minutes.
yeah, I think I looked at it. I didn't see anything on it. I think Mr. Andrews looked at it and he didn't say anything on it. So do I have a motion to approve June 15th minutes?
I move to approve the June 15th minutes, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Mandel makes a motion to approve it. Mr. Young seconds it. Okay, Mr. Sweeney, you weren't there. Mr. Dell?
Mr. Dell says aye.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. McCory?
Aye.
Mr. Bond?
Aye.
Okay, I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything else?
Yes, sir,
Dell.
there's something to bring up. I think what we're starting to have here is a problem that I've seen happen about 2 or 3 times over the past, and it has to be stopped. And that is in our kindness and dutifulness to get an application through. We keep pushing the amount of time that we have to review plans or letters, et cetera, from the professionals to a point where I think we could be arguably in a situation where someone might be able to say that we weren't able to do our due diligence and weren't able to give it a hard look. I think something should be set up, written in stone, saying, for example, 2 days before, because I don't think it's fair to ask the other members of the board to look at something the night of the plan or the day of the plan, when you really need time to look at these things and understand them. And I think if we don't do something about it, it's going to keep getting worse and worse, and we're going to have more situations like we're having now, because we never want to be in a situation where we say we weren't able to look at the plan, but we approved this. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think, Jane, let me just say something. I think part of the problem is the COVID-19 has knocked the heck out of everybody, where people are working from home. They're not getting out. They're not doing their work. I think this has a lot to do with it. I know I was in the office the other day where the girls are. They're going crazy in there. If they don't receive stuff from the consultants, they can't us. So, I mean, you know, what do? I don't know. Hopefully when things get back to normal, which will never be, but I think things will get better. That's all I can say. Mr. Slavin. Jane, go ahead.
Good. So I have to say that Cheryl did receive a call from another municipality because they heard what a great job this board has been doing. The only board in the county that did a meeting a week. We stepped it up in horrible situation and really helped to move the applicants that were stuck forward, which is helping everybody, including the applicants and the town. And yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It put a lot of stress on our department. It was a lot of reviews. It was a lot of paperwork. It was a lot of rearranging. And Mr. Dell, if you would like to possibly get your packages early, please do that. But my understanding is you usually pick it up the day of the meeting. So if we can accommodate you earlier, we'd be happy to. This was unforeseen circumstances. Everybody from public school systems across the board, to our board, to everybody had to learn how to adjust. And I just commend this board on what you've done. And I thank Cheryl for seriously busting her chops. And never once did she complain of all the extra work. So I want to thank you as the director, because I get heat to get this stuff done. And you are the only board that agreed to extra meetings and the only board in the county that did this. Some other municipalities are just starting to do this. You should be commended. It's a great job despite the blips. And it was an amazing effort. And we have one more. We have a month off. And then we reevaluate where we are. And hopefully we're all in a better situation come September.
Okay, Ms. Slavin, no disparagement at all was meant upon the excellent job that you're doing, and Cheryl and everybody else involved. I'm talking primarily about a situation whereby we don't have adequate time to look at the plans. I've been looking at plans, as you know, 40 years. So I have an idea sort of what I'm looking at. Many times I'd like to come earlier. Sometimes I don't. If there's plans that I'm not familiar with of the site, then I would do that. However, in this case, I think if you could set up some way of saying, well, if it's not there, because this is always what's been done in the past, if it's not here, let's say even the day before, the board will not have time to do its due diligence and look at it. And Mr. Town Attorney, Rick, I would say that I think it would be hard pressed to defend that if we're getting plans, an hour before the meeting, 4 hours before the meeting.
Yeah, I know what you're saying,
It could be possibly overturned.
I think the issue is that you deal sometimes with time sensitivity. And the way I interpret this board is you guys were appointed by the town board. You guys are supposed to use your discretion. And I think we have different views present, and I think you do a good job of that. And my point of view is I'm not going to intervene and get in the way of the determination. And I do, and I know, Mr. Dell, you're addressing that one that we were just talking about with Mr. Brenner. That was particularly unusual, with the board reviewing it just on the screen. But I think the issue is that you sometimes do have applications with time sensitivity. And my personal view is that the board needs to have discretion, and you can't say 100%, that's never acceptable. I think it is appropriate to look at every case as sui generis and individual and based upon those facts. And if the board felt comfortable with what they had, I think that case is defensible. If that's one you're thinking that we could be balanced, I think it's defensible. And I do think that it does make sense, especially if you have $1 million project that is going to get delayed in the wintertime. I think this board probably wants to have the discretion to say, yes, we'll accept it now, and no in a different case. But again, it's up to the board. The board can always say, you always have the discretion to say, we don't have enough. We need more time to think of this. You can always say that. But the issue is, do you really want a 100% rule? Because if you do, you can vote on it right now. If you don't get a plan the day before. But to me, it seems like having that discretion probably makes sense. There may be a trivial plan that is really small, and it may be a huge hardship not to vote on it that night. This board should be allowed to say, in this case, it makes sense. Here's why we want to do it. We don't want this guy to not be able to do this throughout the winter. There's safety things or things like that. So again, this board can right now determine if we don't get the plans the Friday before, we will not consider it. But once you make that an official rule and something comes up that is profoundly sympathetic, you've made the rule. It's my view that it probably makes sense to allow the discretion. But then, you know, the problem is you're under the time pressure then, and you may have a slick attorney that pushes you perhaps farther than you want to go. So, but that's up to this board. If you want to have a hard and fast rule, but then you're going to come up, if you vote on a rule and then you go against that rule. So again, my view is, you know, I will step in and say, if I think there really, I believe is a big legal issue, and again, since it's a public meeting, I will be probably a little bit careful how I say it. But you know, that's what I view my job is. Only when I think that there is a major issue that would really jeopardize the board's decision. Other than that, I'm going to allow the board to do what they think is best. And you really do have a lot of discretion in this board to do what you think is appropriate, to set conditions and to decide whether to vote on a plan that, you know, was submitted relatively recently, and perhaps you did not have the plans before you, which is what happened 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I agree with what you're saying. Okay, maybe I wasn't clear enough, but the whole thing is, if there is, let's say, I would say that all plans are to be submitted 48 hours before court hearing, except under unusual circumstances, because otherwise it starts becoming an entitlement rather than something we would do to help them out. Because I agree with you, we've always done that, helped out people, and I certainly would be opposed to it. But if I was an applicant and I wanted to be a little less than, shall we say, genuine, a very simple way to do it would be to have a huge amount of plans and give them to you in a short time and period, and then you'll obviously be able to come up with fewer questions because you wouldn't have time to look at them. So if there's obviously extenuating circumstance, that's fine. But I think if you don't say that, people are going to take advantage of it. And this is
Mr.
what
Dell,
I've seen.
what is the criteria for an unusual circumstance?
That even the Jane can make that chairman or whatever else. I don't know.
Yeah, Ms. Slavin.
Mr. Dill, if you recall the Amazon project, they asked to submit something the day of the meeting. That project is significant.
Yes.
Okay, and it is standard practice within the department that we advise applicants that a major change is not permitted, and most likely the board will not act on it. They are advised, and that's what happened with Amazon. That was major change. The SMK, on the other hand, was not major. And I think that Mr. Piccola's explanation makes sense. If you have a steadfast written rule that does not give the board any flexibility, and to have hold up something that an application actually reduced the required variances and made it better just by flipping the driveway, to say that they have to wait possibly weeks, if not months, because we're going into a certain time of the year, I think the discretion should be left to the board. And again, a significant change, we advised in the department, and we did advise Amazon, this is significant, the board will not act on this. Be aware of that.
Okay,
But this
I didn't know
way, the board has the
that preliminary
opportunity, and I
That's
think you should maybe table this at this point and think about it. Think about what Mr. Picola has recommended, and maybe revisit it again. But these were seriously unprecedented circumstances that we were dealing with. And I think, as a board, for you to have the flexibility to really look at each project and be able to move something forward that is not complicated, is not a significant impact on the environment and the community, I think that's something you really want to consider, not limiting the ability to do that. So maybe it can be further discussion, but at this point, I think you really have to understand that we were in seriously unprecedented waters here. And we have one more meeting, and we have a month to then think about it all and readdress it come September. And again, hopefully we'll all be in a better place.
No, I agree, and I think everyone's done a great job. I didn't mean to cause any problems, but if you're doing that preliminary screening for us, that's sufficient for me. That's all I care about. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything else to say? Yes, Mr. Sweeting.
One quick thing, just procedural, when I said I wasn't here at the June 24th meeting, that's why I didn't want to vote. Then you said I wasn't at the June 15 meeting, and I was.
No, I did say you were at that. No, I think you missed.
No, you said I wasn't there, and you didn't give me a chance to vote for the minutes.
I'm sorry. Sure.
So I vote for the 15th. Okay.
Mr. Sweeney for, and dock me 10 minutes worth of pay. Mr. Sweeney, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, Mr. Andrews.
I'd just like to make some comments. I don't know how soon we're going to go towards paperless, which means blueprints will be on a computer. And I'm not sure if Mr. Dell is talking about physically getting the blueprints in his hands and looking at these blueprints. But if we go paperless, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get the prints in your hand. You're going to have to look at it in a computer. I remember the SMK. I looked at the plans. It was on the computer. I looked at them. I was okay with them. But I think going forward, we have to look at this and decide whether or not we're going to go paperless. I mean, that's a plus for the applicants. That's a plus for us. If we could look at plans on a computer, all of the stuff that Cheryl has given us and everything like that has been on a computer. I know it's a little bit pain, but print it out and look at it. But I think going forward, we need to consider that just as much as what we're considering tonight. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Mandel.
We can look at them on the computer. We're talking about, do we have 30 minutes to look at it on the computer or 2 days to look at it on the computer? That's totally different things. 30 minutes, an hour before, no. 2 days before, that's a different thing. And that's probably what we'll go to in the future. But to use that as the example of why we're going to look at it on the computer at the last minute, I just totally disagree with that.
Okay, this last thing with the GMK Green, okay, has it ever happened before in the respect that we got a set of plans given it to us the day before?
It's definitely happened before. I'm telling you that right now. I've been on this board longer than anybody else. It's definitely happened before. So,
yeah, but not the same
first time.
data.
So the changes that they made on this plan were so minor and they were so much better. I can't believe we're wasting all this time talking about this stuff. It's so much better than the other plans. I mean,
this is probably not the time for us to be quarterback, Sunday night quarterback.
It's late.
All right.
I think it's time to go.
Listen, I'm gonna go night. Anybody else have anything else to say pertinent, please? I know everything's pertinent, but okay. I have a motion.
I make a motion to close.
Mr. Mandel makes a motion to close the meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, second. All in favor? Aye. Everybody, Cheryl, I'm not going down the list, but everybody says yes. Good night, you all. Thank you very, very, very much. All right. One more. Too bad we all can't be